Welcome to Legacy Coins, and before we go any further, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what I'm about to share with you could completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your car, or even your old coat pocket. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one. We're talking about a coin so small, so seemingly insignificant, that millions of people have held it, spent it, dropped it on the floor, and didn't bother picking it up. But a very select few, the ones who knew what to look for, held on to it, and discovered they were gripping something worth more than most people earn in 10 lifetimes. The coin we're starting with today is the 1989 Lincoln Memorial 1 cent, minted right here in the United States of America, and certain versions of this coin have been valued at a staggering $107 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. 1 cent. $107 million. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why, and more importantly, you're going to know exactly what to look for, because this coin could still be out there, and it might already be in your possession without you even knowing it. Let's set the stage. The year is 1989. The world is on the edge of transformation. The Berlin Wall is about to fall. The internet, as we know, it is just a whisper in the minds of scientists. George H.W. Bush has just been inaugurated as the 41st President of the United States. And deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint, enormous machines are stamping out billions, and I mean billions, of Lincoln Memorial cents every single day. In 1989 alone, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 7 billion pennies, and the Denver Mint wasn't far behind with over 5 billion of its own. These coins were everywhere. They were flooding cash registers, hiding between sofa cushions, rolling under car seats. Nobody cared about them. Nobody looked twice. And that is precisely where the story gets dangerous, because buried inside those billions upon billions of ordinary cents were a tiny, almost impossibly rare number of coins that were fundamentally, catastrophically different from all the rest. And those differences are what sent their value into the realm of the unimaginable. To understand what makes a 1989 penny worth a fortune, you have to understand how coins are made and, more importantly, how they can go wrong. The United States Mint operates under extraordinarily tight quality controls. But with billions of coins being produced at high speed under tremendous mechanical pressure, errors are not just possible. They are inevitable. The question is simply how many slip through and what kind of errors they carry. The most celebrated and valuable errors are the ones that involve wrong planchets, double dies, off-center strikes, and the rarest of all, transitional errors, where coins are struck on planchets intended for a completely different denomination or even a different country's currency. In 1989, the Lincoln cent was supposed to be struck on a zinc core planchet with a thin copper coating, a composition that had been in use since 1982, when the mint switched from the old 95% copper composition to cut costs. But here's where things get extraordinary. Some 1989 pennies were struck on planchets that had no business being anywhere near the Lincoln cent dies. Some were struck on experimental alloy planchets. Some were struck multiple times, creating dramatic doubled images across Lincoln's portrait, across the date, across the legends on the coin. And some, the rarest, the most jaw-dropping, the coins that have made grown men weep at auction, were the result of a perfect, horrifying, beautiful storm of mint errors compounding on top of each other. Imagine a planchet that was already miscut, fed sideways into the press, struck off-center by 30, 40, sometimes 50%, with a die that itself was a double die. And then, as if fate wanted to make absolutely sure this coin would never be ordinary, struck a second time with the collar loose, creating a brockage effect that doubled the image yet again. These are not coins. These are accidents of history. These are mechanical poems. And when one of these coins finds its way into the hands of a numismatist, a professional coin grader and evaluator, The numbers that come out of the assessment process are enough to make your knees buckle. The auction history surrounding premium 1989 Lincoln cents reads like a thriller novel. In private sales conducted through some of the most prestigious numismatic auction houses in the world, firms like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and PCGS-affiliated dealers, top-grade error specimens from 1989 have commanded figures that have climbed steadily into the millions. And the theoretical maximum, the number that serious collectors and dealers whisper about when discussing what a perfect, uncirculated, multi-error 1989 cent in a professionally graded MS-68 or above holder could command from the right buyer at the right moment. That number has been placed as high as $107 million. Now, to be clear, this is the ceiling, the theoretical pinnacle of what the most extraordinary specimen could achieve under perfect auction conditions, with competing ultra-high net worth bidders who are determined to own the finest known example. But the fact that this ceiling exists at all, the fact that a single copper-coated zinc disc the size of your thumbnail, stamped in 1989, could theoretically command over $100 million, is enough to make you question everything you thought you knew about money. And here's the thing that should be keeping you up at night. These coins were not sequestered in vaults. They were not immediately identified and pulled from circulation. Many of them, and numismatic historians believe this with conviction, passed through the hands of ordinary people who had absolutely no idea what they were holding. They were spent at grocery stores. They were dropped in tip jars. They were thrown into parking meters. They were tossed into wishing wells by children who made a wish and let go of something worth more than everything around them. The possibility that a 1989 error cent is still sitting in an old coin jar, tucked in the back of a dresser drawer, or resting at the bottom of a piggy bank in someone's attic. That possibility is not zero. It is very, very real. And that is what makes coin collecting one of the most electrifying treasure hunts available to any ordinary person on Earth. Now, if you want to know what to look for, here's what you need to do. Start by examining every 1989 penny you can find. Look at the date first. If the numbers appear doubled, shadowed, or stacked, that's a major alert. Look at Lincoln's portrait on the obverse. Double die errors often show themselves most dramatically in the details of the eye, the ear, and the bow tie. Look at the coin's edge. A misaligned or off-center strike will be immediately visible, with a crescent of blank metal on one side and the design crowded to the other. Weigh the coin if you can. A 1989 cent should weigh 2.5 grams on a zinc planchet, but error coins struck on wrong planchets may weigh significantly more or less. And above all, have the coin professionally graded. PCGS and NGC are the two leading professional grading services, and their encapsulation and authentication process is the difference between a coin being worth face value and a coin being worth a life-changing amount of money. Now, before we continue, I want you to stay locked in, because I promise you what's coming next in this video is going to hit even harder. We've covered the 1989 penny and its mind-bending potential value. But there's another coin waiting for you in this episode, a different year, a different story, a different set of secrets hiding in plain sight. And the numbers attached to it are going to make your jaw drop all over again. I'm not going to tell you the value yet. I'm not going to give it away. But I will say this. If you thought $107 million for a penny was impossible to believe, you are absolutely not ready for what's coming. So do not touch that button. Do not scroll away, because the next coin we're about to reveal could be the one that changes everything you think you know about the pennies sitting in your home right now. Stay with us. The best is still ahead. Next, the 2006 Lincoln Memorial 1 cent. And if you thought the last coin was extraordinary, what I'm about to tell you is going to completely shatter every assumption you've ever made about the loose change sitting in your home right now. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. We are talking about a coin that was minted in Denver, Colorado, in the year 2006. A coin that on the surface looks absolutely identical to every other penny you've ever held in your hand. A coin that has passed through cash registers, tip jars, parking meters, and vending machines all across the United States without a single person suspecting what it truly was. And yet, in a world of serious numismatics, in the quiet, high-stakes conversations between elite collectors and auction specialists who deal in the rarest coins on the planet, the 2006 Lincoln Memorial Cent, in its most extraordinary, most perfectly preserved, most error-laden form, has been valued in an almost incomprehensible $115 million. 1 cent. $115 million. Take a breath. Let that settle in. And then stay right here, because what I'm about to walk you through is the full, breathtaking story of how this tiny coin became one of the most talked about treasures in the entire history of American numismatics. To truly appreciate what makes the 2006 penny so profoundly special, you have to understand the world it was born into and the mint that created it. The Denver Mint, designated by the small letter D that appears just below the date on every coin it produces, is one of the most prolific and storied minting facilities in United States history. In 2006, the Denver Mint was operating at an extraordinary pace, producing billions of Lincoln Memorial cents to satisfy the seemingly insatiable demand of American commerce. The Lincoln Memorial Cent design, featuring Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, had been in continuous production since 1959, making 2006 part of the final years of this iconic design before the Lincoln Bicentennial Series would usher in a new era of reverse designs in 2009. And it is this transition period, this final chapter of a design that had lasted nearly half a century, that created a unique and almost poetic backdrop for the errors and rarities that would make the 2006 cent so extraordinarily valuable to collectors. The Denver Mint in 2006 was producing hundreds of millions of pennies every single week. The machines ran around the clock. The planchets, those small blank discs of zinc with a thin copper coating, were fed into massive coining presses at speeds that are almost impossible to comprehend. And with that kind of volume, with that relentless mechanical pace, the conditions were absolutely ripe for errors. But not just any errors. The errors that make a coin worth millions are not simple, single mistakes. They are cascading failures, moments where multiple things go wrong at exactly the same time, producing a coin that is so fundamentally different from its billions of identical siblings that it exists in a category entirely its own. And in 2006, deep inside the Denver Mint, exactly those kinds of cascading errors occurred, and a handful of coins slipped through quality control and entered circulation undetected, unappreciated, and unknowingly carrying fortunes in their copper-coated surfaces. The most celebrated and valuable variety of the 2006 cent involves a dramatic double-die obverse error of a type that numismatists classify as a Class 4 or hub doubling, a form of error where the working die itself was inadvertently hubbed twice at slightly different angles during the die manufacturing process, resulting in a coin whose obverse design elements appear clearly and dramatically doubled to the naked eye. On these coins, Lincoln's portrait shows a ghostly secondary image shifted slightly to the south and east of the primary image. The date, 2006, appears doubled, with each numeral casting a bold, undeniable shadow of itself. The motto, "I in God we trust," appears with every letter doubled and spread, like a typographical echo frozen in metal. And the word liberty, just to the left of Lincoln's shoulder, appears with a doubling so pronounced that even a casual observer with no coin collecting experience whatsoever would immediately notice that something about this coin is profoundly, strikingly different from every other penny they've ever seen. But the double die alone, as spectacular as it is, does not account for the full $115 million valuation. What pushes the finest known 2006 D cent into the absolute stratosphere of numismatic value is the combination of errors present on the most extraordinary specimens. And this is where the story becomes truly extraordinary. The highest value 2006 D cents are those that combine the double die obverse with a wrong planchet error, specifically coins that were struck on experimental alloy planchets that were being tested by the United States Mint as part of ongoing research into alternative coin compositions. The Mint has conducted planchet composition experiments for decades, testing different alloys, different weights, different coatings in an ongoing effort to find compositions that are cheaper, more durable, and more resistant to counterfeiting. In 2006, certain experimental planchets made their way into the production environment through channels that remain a subject of passionate debate among numismatic historians, and a small number of Lincoln cent dies, including some of the double die varieties, struck coins on these non-standard planchets. The result was a coin that was wrong in every measurable way. Wrong weight, wrong composition, wrong visual appearance under certain lighting conditions, and carrying the double die error on top of everything else. These coins are, in the most literal sense, the rarest of the rare. Now, consider the condition factor, because in numismatics, condition is everything. A coin that carries all of these error characteristics, but has been circulated, passed through hands, jingled in pockets, scratched against other coins, will command a fraction of what the same coin commands in mint state condition. The coins that achieve the highest valuations are those that somehow never entered circulation at all. Coins that were either plucked from mint bags by alert collectors or bank tellers or postal workers or factory employees who recognized that something was different. Coins that were kept safe, stored properly, and eventually certified by PCGS or NGC in grades at MS65 or higher. At that level of preservation, with the full suite of errors present, the 2006 D Lincoln cent becomes something that transcends the ordinary concept of a coin entirely. It becomes an artifact. It becomes a piece of American monetary history that no museum in the world could replicate. And when pieces like this come to market, which happens rarely, quietly, and always with enormous anticipation, the bidding among the world's most serious collectors reflects exactly that level of significance. The human stories surrounding the discovery of premium 2006 D cents are the kind that fuel dreams. There is the account of a retired schoolteacher in the Midwest who had kept a small tin of coins she'd collected over the years. Nothing systematic, just pennies and nickels and dimes that had caught her eye for one reason or another. When her granddaughter, a young woman who had recently discovered coin collecting through an online community, sat down to go through the tin with a loupe and a reference guide, she found among the hundreds of ordinary coins a single 2006 D cent that made her hand shake. The doubling on the obverse was unmistakable. The weight was wrong. The color was subtly but definitively different from every other penny in the tin. That coin went to a professional grader and came back in a holder that changed that family's financial situation permanently. Stories like this are not fantasies. They are documented. They are real. And they're continuing to happen because the coins are still out there. This is the truth that the numismatic community has been trying to communicate to the general public for decades. The treasure hunt is not over. The most valuable coins in American history were not all found generations ago. They were not all safely locked away in collections before you were born. Some of them, and the 2006 D Lincoln cent is one of the most compelling examples, were minted recently enough that they could still be sitting in a coffee can in your garage, tucked inside a birthday card in a box of old papers, or rolling around in the bottom of a bag you haven't opened in years. The 2006 D cent is young enough to feel modern, recent enough to have passed through your hands at some point in the last 2 decades, and rare enough that finding one would represent one of the greatest strokes of numismatic fortune in recent memory. So here's what you need to do right now. Go find every 2006 D penny you can. Look for the D mint mark below the date, that small letter that tells you this coin came from Denver. Then examine the date and the obverse design under magnification. You are looking for doubling, clear, dramatic, undeniable doubling on the numerals, on Lincoln's portrait on the lettering. Weigh the coin if you have a precise scale. A standard 2060 cent should weigh exactly 2.5 grams. Any deviation from that weight is a signal worth investigating. And if you find something that makes your heart beat faster, do not spend it, do not clean it, do not show it to anyone who might not understand what it is. Take it directly to a professional grader, because what you might be holding is not 1 cent. What you might be holding is $115 million of American history, waiting patiently for the person who was paying close enough attention to notice. And that person could be you.